All right, so over the last 24 hours or so, there has been some really, really, really big news. I've skimmed a little bit of it, and Scottejaye has put together a video compilation going over everything. This is all regarding Phase 2, Season of Discovery. Let's see what Blizzard is sort of cluing us in on. Let's watch this.
Whoa,
I'm going to full screen this.
Geez, that was a weird dream. I didn't even know Torrens are that flexible. Right. I need coffee and a good YouTube video to wake me up. Christ, it smells like a dwarf's armpit in here. Alexa, find me a new Season of Discovery video.
This entire video is going to be AI.
Play how I play the game, as in don't worry about.
Oh, it's
no
Scottejaye.
Not this guy. He thinks he knows it all but can't parse higher than 30. Someone really needs to sort this idiot out. Why does my voice sound like a voice actor from a low budget?
There is this funny phenomenon amongst World of Warcraft players. I mean, I guess it's just like gamers in general. There's this idea that being good at games makes you a necessarily smarter person or a necessarily better person, a more attractive, as if like the ultimate way to determine the value of a human is to look at their World of Warcraft parses or their rating in League of Legends or whatever, and it's like, yeah, this is a ridiculous notion, right?
Budget Korean MMO. If I can just work out how to build a
Is it?
teleporter to get to his world,
Maybe
I
it
can
is.
sort
I
him
don't
out.
know.
Let's
I don't
hope
know.
this worked. See you on the other side.
Okay, let's get to the video.
Don't know what that was.
While we know sometimes we have to take what the devs say with a pinch of salt, there's been some little gems they put out there, and while you may think it's been a quiet week for Season of Discovery, from little to no news, you'd actually be wrong. You're probably just not looking in
There's
the right
been a lot of
place
news
anymore, which can be a little bit irritating, having to check so many different places just to find out what the dev.
This is true. This is a true thing he's going to say. If you want to be totally clued in to the state of Season of Discovery or Classic WoW, you need to be on Twitter following all of the Classic WoW developers because all of them are randomly dropping pieces of information on their own personal Twitter feeds. They are not being put into blue posts. They are not being posted on Wowhead. Well, Wowhead will post the Twitter stuff after it's already been posted, but it's like most of the info we get is just some classic dev deciding to randomly drop a little breadcrumb on Twitter. And it's like, is this the best way to go about it? I don't know. I'd rather have this than nothing, I
Devs are actually
guess.
thinking. Starting every video when there's been some news or information from the devs like, oh my god guys, this is the biggest news ever. Yeah, it's getting a little bit old. So instead I'll be completely honest right up front. Some of the things we're going to dive into now are so significant to the future of how and what content we receive in Season of Discovery, and even in other versions of the game. The information on its own, without being broken down by me in understandable chunks, could cause a complete meltdown in your brain, because news of such magnitude can only be directly compared to the reaction of an audience hearing Tenacious D performing Master Exploder. I should have just stuck with a, wow, this is the biggest news ever, shouldn't I? Yeah. There's several things to get through, from what raid size Gnomeregon's going to be, how it's going to launch, or should I say open for the first time. Potentially new ways to get XP, and I don't mean the fastest way to 40 or anything like that. I mean an actual new way of getting XP completely. Potentially, if what the devs are teasing at is true. We're also going to take a look at some of the big crafted items coming in the next phase for each profession, which won't be
I have not
focusing
seen
so
this
much
yet.
on the items themselves, but instead the materials that are going to be valuable.
I might need to level cooking. Do you guys think that... Well, let me ask you. I haven't really thought about this. Do you... Normally in Vanilla WoW, cooking and fishing are sort of underwhelming, in my opinion. You don't really get anything unique to yourself from being a cook or a fisherman because you can just buy the results of fishing and cooking on the auction house. If you're the actual cooker or fisher yourself, you don't get anything that is unique to you, right? There's not really a big personal reward for it. Do you think they should add some cool stuff that is unique for cooks and fishermen? Do you think that they should add something special for those players? I think they should. I think they probably should.
Because this might then give you something to do over the next week or two, getting some of these materials from maybe fishing or farming in higher level zones. We're also going to look at the future of how content delivery is decided and why I'm not keen on what's happening right now. We're also going to have a look at how the numbers of Season of Discovery are progressing this late in the phase. I don't mean DPS numbers, I mean numbers of active players. And I actually think that it's going to shock you when you get to see how these numbers have progressed since the video I put out looking at populations a couple of weeks ago. Now, the first piece of news we actually got a bit more inadvertently, because actually telling us the size of Gnomeregan wasn't the intention of the post, which that will become clearer in a minute.
This is one of the problems with the classic developers posting things on Twitter, right? So Josh Greenfield, he posted, open question, should we delay the launch of Gnomeregan 10-player raid by a week or just have it be open from day one of Phase 2? This prompted a giant discussion where people, and this was like a week ago, he posted this, about a week ago on Twitter, and this was a big discussion on Twitter. People were saying, I want it to be delayed, or I don't want it to be delayed, whatever. But also one takeaway was, wait a minute, Gnomeregan 10-player raid? We didn't know that. This is a big announcement. We, up until this tweet here, people were speculating, is it going to be a 20-man raid? Is Gnomeregan going to be a 40-man raid? Is it going to be a 10-man raid like BFD? We didn't know the raid size. And so people commented on this tweet below it, and they said, hey, Josh, you just announced that this is a 10-player raid. Can we hear some more about that? And you know what he responded with? He said, no, you guys already knew that. No, this isn't an announcement. You guys already knew that it's going to be a 10-player raid. We already told you guys that. And they didn't. We did not know that. No one knew it was a 10-player raid. And so in his brain, maybe he thought that they announced it and that we already knew, but we didn't know that. Take it from me, someone who's very clued into all of this stuff. I follow this stuff way more closely than I should. We did not know that. And so, but he's telling us we did already know that. Okay, well, he got confused, I guess.
But we now know it's a 10-player raid. Now,
yeah,
I
now
know
we
many
know.
of us probably suspected it's going to be a 10-player raid because, well, Black Fathom Deeps was. But on the basis that before Season of Discovery launched, we was already told that the likelihood of level 60 raiding will still be 40-player raids.
I hope it
raid
is.
sizes. I've heard it thrown around that you're actually sticking with 40-man, which, I'll be honest with you, I don't like. I know many people do, but, you know, is there any chance of different raid sizes at 60?
I always want to say there's a chance, but there's nothing for us to promise in that vein.
You know, I've thought about this a lot personally, and what kind of what is the quintessential difference between original WoW and like Burning Crusade or Wrath, and having played through all of 2019, I started a guild at the beginning of 2019 Classic, and it's still together. We're rating ICC now and everything, and I will say that one of the things that's nice about 40-player rating is that not every single person has to be super, you know, you can take friends and family and stuff. Not everyone has to be the highest performing, whereas with the design of Burning Crusade and Wrath, you tend to kind of min-max your roster a little bit more because you got to get the right buffs and you got to,
Casual 40-man raids are the best raids in the history of WoW. I firmly believe that. It's like 40-man raids are one of the huge reasons why I prefer and why I love vanilla WoW as opposed to any other version of World of Warcraft. 40-man raids are quintessential. 40-man raids are the magnum opus of World of Warcraft raid design. They are awesome. Now, let's be honest though, there is a precedent for 10-man raids, 20-man raids, and 40-man raids in vanilla WoW. They've done all of them. You've got 10-man raids, you've got Upper Blackrock Spire. You've got 20-man raids, you've got Zul'Grub, you've got AQ20. You've got 40-man raids. We're not going to mention all those. So I think it makes total sense for them to have new 10-man raids, new 20-man raids, and new 40-man raids if they want to do that. It doesn't only have to be 40-man raids, but I think they should do at least like a couple of them. They should do a lot. They should do everything.
Everyone really has to kind of do mechanics and do everything, and I think it's a little less social in general because of that. It's rewarding in other ways, and it's a lot easier to manage as a raid leader for sure. But so I think it also comes down to like how do we best spend our time too, is like retrofitting like Molten Core to make it a 20-player raid. Is that a good use of our time?
No.
I think as a developer, I think I'd rather put that time into more new original cool stuff. So I don't know. So we'll see there, but never say never.
Had me at least thinking that they might ramp the sizes up a little bit. So BFD 10-man, maybe they'd put Gnomeregan up to 15-man.
I was really, really hoping for Gnomeregan 20-man. Also, I think that they should never do 15 or 25-man raids in Classic WoW Season of Discovery. One of the biggest problems going from vanilla into TBC was breaking down 40-man guilds into 25-man guilds. That shrink, and then also you're playing TBC. You have your 25-man raid roster, but you also want to do 10-man raids. Okay, how do you get a bunch of 10-man raids out of a 25-man main raid roster? I guess the point is, I think the raid sizes need to be equally multiplicative or divisible, right? So 10 goes into 20, 20 goes into 40. You can break a 40-man raid into two 20-man raids very easily. You can break a 20-man raid into two 10-man raids very easily. You can break a 40-man raid into four 10-man raids very easily. But it's much harder to break a 40-man raid into a bunch of 15-man raids. It's harder to break a 40-man raid into a bunch of 25-man raids. It's harder to go from a bunch of 10-man raids into a bunch of 15-man. It's just more annoying and more difficult, right? So I think that 10, 20, 40, those are good numbers for raids in vanilla WoW. That's my opinion. It's as from like the raid leader point of view, I think it makes it much easier.
And then scale up to the point where then when we're level 60, we're doing 40-player raiding. Because whilst I know you can amalgamate all of these 10-man raids together to make a 40-man at 60, if we continue doing 10-player raids on the way up, it's going to be a weird transition, especially for smaller guilds like my own, to be fair. Because there's no pressure on having to recruit more people, because there is no larger scale raids at the moment, I think that transition period between level 50 raiding and then level 60 raiding might be a bit strange if it carries on like this. But in case you was wondering, and for me personally, I love the fact that it's going to be a 10-man. I hope everything's 10-man all the way to level 60, but then I would love to see at level 60 it not be 40-man. I would love to see 10 and 25-man personally, but...
No. I could not disagree more. I really don't like 10-man. I wish that every raid going forward at the level 40 and 50 meta was 20-man. I think 20-man raids for leveling raids are good. 10-man raids are too small and divisive in guilds, and I think that 40-man raids are the creme de la creme of vanilla raiding. That's what I think.
Who knows? That could be something that happens, but the devs have already alluded to the fact that that probably won't be the case. So it was Agron that actually put this tweet out, and the primary reason for him putting it out in the first place was to try and get some player feedback on how we feel the raid should actually launch. So should it be open straight away so you can rush to level 40, get in Gnomeregan and start clearing it, or should there be a week delay? Now, I have brushed through a lot of replies, and I see a lot of people saying leave it as it is. A lot of people saying let's delay it by a week so there's not that rush for leveling, so no one feels like they're missing out on anything. This is completely taking away how I play the game, as in don't worry about the fact that yes, I probably will no life launch and try and do it in one sitting, get to 40, and yes, I want to be raiding as quickly as possible, but at the same time, I don't really care whether I hit 40 and go straight into Gnomeregan or I hit 40 and then have to wait a week. But I personally would just prefer it to be available at launch. And the reason for this is not a selfish one.
Okay.
It's purely because there's a lot of guilds that will want to rush and race and, you know, be the first guild to clear it. And that's fun. And that might not be fun for you, and it might not be fun for me even to see I'm not even level 40 yet and there's guilds clearing Gnomeregan. But that's how they want to play the game. So why delay it by a week and punish?
Okay, the reason, the argument I think you can make here is when you are designing a game, you've got a plurality of different types of gamers, right? And I'm going to make a bell curve chart real fast to try to explain this maybe, okay? These are your, like, I don't know, how many hours a day do you think the average player plays? How many hours a day does the average Classic WoW play Classic WoW? The average Classic WoW player play Classic WoW? Like 3 hours, 2 hours, let's call it 3, okay? 3 hour gamers. Let's call these people over here, these are your absolute turbo. These guys are playing 16 hours, and these guys are playing like 30 minutes a day, okay? And this, the title of this graph will be like, playtime per day, okay, is the title of the graph. Okay, so I really do, maybe I'm becoming casual, maybe I'm becoming soft, I don't know, but this is my opinion. I think this is my game development opinion. If you want your game to make as many people happy as you possibly can, if you want your game to appeal to as many people as possible, I think you generally want to target this audience. You want to target the most average, the most median, the most this is the largest player demographic. I don't think you want to I don't think you want to cater to this demographic to the detriment of this graphic, because the reality is there are way more people here than there are people here. You also, in the same vein, you don't want to cater your game towards people that only have 20 or 30 minutes to play either. You want to cater it towards people that are run-of-the-mill average everyday gamers, right? And so I think it's important to identify that player demographic and then sort of design the game around them. And so the reason why these numbers are sort of important is that, okay, so how long does it take to get from 25 to 40 if you're playing 3 hours a day? Let's talk about this. Well, if you're an average gamer, once again, you're probably doing 3 or 3.5 hour levels, and there's 15 levels you need to go from 25 to 15. So let's do 15 times. Let's say you're doing 3.5 hour levels times 3.5, because you're leveling up. You're doing some world PvP. You're trying to find your new runes. There's new runes to look at. You're going to the auction house. You're not speed leveling. You're an average gamer, okay? You're not a world record speed leveling guy. Okay, so it's going to take you 52 hours to get from 25 to 40. Okay, divide that by 24. It's going to take you a little bit over 2 days, 2 real life days. Okay, let's of slash played time. Okay, let's get this back up to 52.5, and you're playing 3 hours a day. Average gamer is playing 3 hours a day. Okay, divide this by 3. It's going to take you 17 days. It's going to take, if you're an average gamer, it's going to take you 17 days to go from 25 to 40. And that might seem crazy. If you're someone that's watching World of Warcraft YouTube videos, or if you're someone that's watching World of Warcraft Twitch content, keep in mind, you are not an average World of Warcraft gamer. Most average World of Warcraft gamers, they're not watching YouTube videos. They are not watching Twitch. They don't even know that my channel, they don't know who I am. They don't know who you are. They're like pretty clued out. And that being said, still though, the game probably should be designed around those people, because there's the most of those people. If you want to have this game be the biggest and most successful that it possibly can be, you need to keep those people in mind. You can't design the game around turbo nerd sweaty players. And so yeah, I think that there is a strong argument to be made for delaying the raid by 1 week. I think so. I think that will get a lot more people into the first lockout. People won't feel behind. If Season of Discovery is designed to be this casual gamer dad experience, which is what we've been explicitly told by the Classic WoW dev team, this is a version of Classic built for casuals, then why would you want to punish people for leveling at a normal average rate? They're finding their runes. They're discovering all the new Season of Discovery things around the world. It's like, hey, you're a player that is discovering all the new stuff. You're an average player and you're taking your time. You're enjoying the new content. Well, we're going to punish you by making you miss a raid lockout. I don't think that really follows the main idea that we've been given for Season of Discovery. So I think there is a very strong argument to be made for delaying the raid by 1 week. And you guys know, I'm a turbo nerd, no life sweaty gamer. I'm gonna be level 40 within a day and a half. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna take a bunch of caffeine, and I'm gonna do it without sleeping even one time. But even though that's my personal case, I understand that I am not the rule. I'm the exception. Like, most people do not do that, right?
That group of people, and you can just have it available at launch and it don't affect any of us anyway. Because, like, let's face it, if we missed out on one reset, so, you know, you've got all these guilds that are going in, racing and getting it cleared in the first sort of 24, 30 hours, whatever, and you happen to miss that first reset, so they're getting an extra lockout's worth of loot over you, what difference does it really make? It's a leveling.
Well, I think you could equally say, what difference does it make if the Race to World First Raiders, who are less than 1% of the player base, have to wait a week to do the raid? If the equation is you're trying to make the biggest demographic happy, you're trying to make the most people happy, okay? Is it the hyper sweaty no life demographic that is like 0.5% of the player base, or is it the average demographic that is like 70% of the player base, right? I think if you have to choose which demographic to appease, the 0.5% or the 70%, I think you pick the 70%.
Up dungeon, we're going to be level 40. It makes little to no difference. You've seen how many lockouts of BFD you've happened to get, you know, between phase 1 launching and now phase 2 coming. So it's not like you're going to get a lack of Nomra by having some of these top guilds that put loads and loads of effort in and loads of preparation into try and get in there and clear it first by getting one more lockout than you do. There are some alternatives.
I think you can also look at this. It's not just one more lockout, okay? Within the first week, the sweaty players have 100% more loot than you do. If you're a casual player, sweaty players have 100% more loot than you do. By week 2, they've got 2 times more loot than you. By week 3, they've got 33% more loot than you do. By week 4, they've got 25% more loot than you do. That's like, to act like that is not substantial. That's actually pretty big. Like, that is a pretty big deal. By week 5, they've got 20% more loot than you do. If you do the math on that, it is a pretty big deal. Like, that's a big amount of loot. It is.
Alternatives, like you could make the first lockout last a whole week instead of only 3 days. That would then allow for those of us that are a bit slower not to actually lose out on that first lockout, if you like. But for me personally, the fact is not everybody does need to be able to clear the content in the first lockout or even step foot in there in the first lockout. Some people might need some gear from the level 40 dungeons first before they can even go in and clear it. So I don't really agree with the fact that we should be punishing the people that want to go in and they want to, you know, race for world first and be one of the first or top 10 guilds even to clear Gnomeregan, because that's what they find fun. Taking away from other people's fun to, I don't know, make us feel like we're not missing out on something.
Now, this is a conversation where I think the classic devs should default to the community sentiment, right? I think defaulting to the will of the community is not always the best decision, but with this decision, I think it is the right play. So I think they should do their best job of identifying how does the community feel about this, and then I think they should go with that. The community is completely split on this, though. I don't think that's the case at all. I've seen 3 different very large community polls conducted, and all 3 of them, to different degrees, have voted for delaying the raid. I conducted a poll on my Twitter page with, I think, 1,200 votes, 60% of which voted for the raid to be delayed. I think it was Willie conducted a poll with 13,000 votes on his YouTube page. I think it was Willie, and it was like 75% were in favor of delaying the raid. The other poll, I forget who conducted it. It was about 65% were in favor of delaying the raid, with another several thousand votes. And then this is not as mathematic, but if you go to Egren's tweet where he asks people for feedback on Twitter, almost everyone was voting for delaying the raid. Like seriously, if you go and read those comments, people wanted the raid to be delayed. At least the people that were commenting on his Twitter thread. It seems like most people in the classic SOD scene are in favor of delaying the raid. That's what it seems like to me.
I'm not really a fan. Now, I did mention in the intro about the whole changing of the way that we get content and what content we actually get. And it really is alluding to some of these things that are going on Twitter in particular. I can only speak for myself, and I check Twitter occasionally. If
Okay.
I was to say once a week, that's probably exaggerating, because it's not the place I expect to go and get information directly from the developers. It should either be in the form of blue posts that are going on the official World of Warcraft forums, or preferably on the Battle.net launcher. So while I love this
wish there
open
were more blue
communication
posts.
from the devs, like from people like Agrand, I feel like Twitter is starting to become a bit of a weird place for it to sit. And I know you're probably like, man, you're old, you know, like we're always on Twitter. Maybe you are, but me personally, it's not where I look for something like this ordinarily.
I think the reason why you're seeing a shift towards Twitter posting is I think that this is what I think. I think that every single blue post has to be ran through their like human resources department. They've got to get this guy to check off on the blue post. You have this person check off on the blue post. You have to have like 7 different layers of like managers or there's a bunch of red tape with blue posts. Okay, people have to sign off on the blue post. It's got to be a very official thing. Whereas on Twitter, all these people can say, "Oh well, these are my personal opinions. These are, you know, my what I post here does not necessarily reflect the ideas or opinions of Blizzard Entertainment as a whole." And so I think you're seeing, I think you're seeing developers post on Twitter more as a way to sort of bypass a lot of the red tape that's going on within the company itself.
I am having to do it more and more now. But asking for community feedback on something as important as when is the first raid going to launch, as in, is it going to be delayed by a week, you're missing out on lots and lots of feedback from people that don't use Twitter. And don't get me wrong, there'll be people that don't use the forums. But at least the majority of guild discords and stuff like that will have sections set up where when there's a blue post, it pings Discord so everybody can go and see it. And if it's on a blue post, Wowhead will pick up on it instantly.
This is the problem with conducting surveys or polls ever. Like if anyone has looked into political surveys or political polls, this is one of the problems, right? Okay, so if I want to figure out which political candidate you're going to vote for in the upcoming election, and I decide that I want to start calling people's landline phones, I'm going to call people's house phones. Well, I already have a bias for people that have houses and have phones, right? In my house here, I don't even have a landline. So if someone's trying to figure out who people are voting for by calling everyone's landlines in their house, I don't have a landline, so they're not going to get my opinion, right? And so, yeah, so determining like trying to gather information, there will always be some demographic that is not represented in some survey or some poll, because it's just impossible, right?
Instantly, whereas if it's a tweet, they might not pick up on it as quick. I just really like what Blizzard are doing at the moment in terms of getting feedback and seeing what people want. I'm just not really that keen on the format. Let me know in the comments if that's just a me problem, or does it bother you a little bit that...
You know what? I think Scotty has identified a problem. I see a post by Piorum in my Twitch chat right now, and this is totally true. RuneScape does this. He says they need an in-game poll system. In old school RuneScape, if you go to the bank in old school RuneScape, there's a voting box, and any change or any modification that Jagex wants to make to old school RuneScape, they let you vote on it in game. That's a really good way to do it. There's a little box, you go and talk to it, you can vote. It's like you're voting in real life. And you do it at the bank in RuneScape. That's a great way to do it, because these are people that are playing the game, right? You know
that there's official sort of communications going out that actually affect Season of Discovery decision making from the devs, and it's on Twitter. And this is a bit of a strange one, but it's something that I would absolutely love to see. So while people were questioning Agrand and tagging him in posts about, should we be allowing people to stack up 25 quests to hand in at launch and all of that, which I'm absolutely fine with, by the way. Again, I think giving you something to do now, getting your quest log stacked up to be able to get a few levels at launch, I don't see anything wrong with that. For any of you that have played more than just Season of Discovery, you'll know we've been doing that for years. It's just a common occurrence. You stacking up quests ready for when your XP bar appears again, and you get a big chunk of XP. So I don't disagree that that should be a thing. So what Agron said in this message was, I'd maybe not make assumptions at this moment that that will be your only option. And what that was in reply to was the whole questing and stacking up quests, or as soon as the game...
I think Agrand is a pretty passive-aggressive guy. I'm not hating on him, but half of the posts I see from Agrand are like they're very passive-aggressive. They are.
And what that
they
was
really
in reply
are.
to was the whole questing and stacking up quests, or as soon as the game launches, just going in and dungeon grinding
100%.
all the way to level 40, so you don't really even see much of the outdoor world. So it's as if he was alluding to there might be other ways to get experience. Now, it's quite common practice in other games to be able to get experience from crafting. There was even games as far back as Star Wars Galaxies where you could play the game in entirety and really enjoy it, and spend as much time on there as anybody else without even fighting anything. Like completely non-combat ways of leveling and non-combat professions. And I know that's obviously in other games as well, but for anyone who's known me for a while, Star Wars Galaxies, that was my jam. So while straight away when you hear, oh, there might be other ways to get XP, you're thinking, there's a lot of PvP going on, isn't there? In Season of Discovery, big PvP scene at the moment. Maybe we're going to start getting XP from Battlegrounds, which, don't get me wrong, that would be amazing. And actually, that's something I would implement personally. But wouldn't it be cool if it was a bit further than that, and you did get XP based on what you was crafting, and you could get XP from gathering, which, XP from gathering came in later on.
Yeah, that's something they added in Cataclysm, right?
Down the line anyway. But yeah, it was just a little like, maybe this could be something that happens that piqued my interest. And I thought, well, I'll share it with you guys. What do you think in the comments? What would be a great addition that maybe we've never even seen in retail? A way that you could get XP where it wouldn't be faster than going out questing or doing dungeons or stuff like that, but it would just be maybe a fun way for you to get XP, like if you did enjoy professions, just as an example. And then I just wanted to touch on the current server population. And overall looking at faction balance as well, because I've never ever seen it look so healthy. And I know on the PvP servers it's forced faction.
I'm playing on Crusader Strike. The PvP servers do have forced faction balance, and I feel like this has gone over pretty well. It's a pretty good system.
Balance, but even on the PvE servers, it's not really bad. There's still no 100% Horde or 100% Alliance servers, which I'm shocked at, actually. I expected to see PvE servers with, this is the Horde PvE server, this is the Alliance PvE server, but that's not happened yet. But looking at this week on week, so from the 22nd to the 12th, which obviously was going to be not quite as busy as other times because it was over the Christmas period, there was a total of 374,000 people raiding, because this does look at passes. So it looks at how many people are physically logged on Warcraft logs
how many
during
characters
this period. So we went from 375k rounding up, and then after the new year it was up to 464,000, and it's now even outperforming that at 472,000.
Now keep in mind, I think everyone knows this, but I'll say it again. This is not necessarily 472,000 individual players. This is 472,000 characters. So if you or I raid every 3 days in Black Fathom Deeps on 6 characters, if you have 5 alts, you're raiding on 6 characters a couple times a week, then you are showing up 6 times. Okay, you are +6 rather than +1. That's how this works.
And the reason I think this is a big deal is because we're at the back end of the phase. This should be the time where it is literally the quietest. I know our guild is not really doing a great deal because we're just waiting for phase 2, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are probably even back playing Wrath or maybe playing Retail.
What about people that don't even raid log? This is true. As you guys know, I pug every single raid. I haven't even been raiding with my own guild. I just pug every single raid. It's so easy. I don't even care, and it's all good every time. Half of my pug raids don't get raid logged. I've noticed that. Sometimes I'll check the Warcraft logs because I don't care. I'm not logging, but I'm curious sometimes. Maybe someone else raid logged. No. So half of my raids aren't even raid logged. You're right. So yeah, it is true. There are people that are not showing up on this number here because their raid is not raid logging. Totally true.
Or other games while they wait for phase 2. So to see that it's actually still climbing, even though it's right at the end of a phase, just shows how much of a positive experience Season of Discovery has been. I know there's another way you could look at that, and you could be, hang on, Scott, yeah, it's because people have had more time to level more alts and raid on more alts, and don't get me wrong, that could definitely play a part to it, but I also see a lot of people that were probably raiding on 4 or 5 characters before that might only just be raiding on 1 or 2 now. So while it's not an exact science on what we can extrapolate from this, it's still a really, really good sign, especially when...
You know what I can say? I really enjoy the BFD raid. Like, I really do. I look forward to it every 3 or 4 days. Most of like World of Warcraft raiding, after 2 months, I'm like kind of burnt out on whatever raid I'm doing, but I still am excited to do BFD. I'm going to do it later today. I'm excited to do it.
When you compare it to Wrath of the Lich King,
I think it's a decent raid.
Absolutely just pains me to look at with only 238,000 people raiding. And then when you look at some of these faction balance, it just doesn't exist. And the next thing I wanted to touch on was professions, because WoW had put a brilliant post out showing all the real sort of sought after recipes that people are going to be wanting to craft either to actually use or consumable wise for raids in the next phase. Now we all are assuming that we're going to be able to get to 225 in the next phase. There's been other random numbers thrown around.
We don't know
on
for sure though.
Podcasts and on different videos saying maybe they cap it at 200, maybe they cap it at 210. I've looked and I can see good reason for actually capping it slightly lower than 225, and that would purely come down to actually the recipes that gnomes are going to have access to.
So I'm just thinking about this. If at 40 we're capped at 225, then at 50 we would be capped at like 265, and then at 60 we can go all the way to 300. I guess that could work. I guess that would make sense. Something like that, right?
At that level that everybody else isn't. And on top of that, if we was going to 150 at 25, then we know at level 40 we get 225. Then at 50 you would assume it would be 300. Now professions are done before the level 60 phase. If they want to add more items, I don't know, maybe it makes that a little bit more awkward. So they could actually put it at, let's say, 200 and then 250 and then 300. Like, I have actually looked at some specific examples
they could do
where
that.
Recipes would make sense capping at lower than 225. I just don't know if they're going to go to that much effort for the sake of, 5, 10, maybe 15 points of engineering or 15 points of tailoring or, So my guess would be...
They could also totally, let's say you're level 60, they might increase the level cap for professions from 300 up to 320, right? By the time we're 60, we might be able to go beyond 300. And then they add a bunch of new stuff to do at 320 or 315. They just pick a number, right? I don't know. They could do that. Who knows?
Probably 225, but they might surprise us and do something different. But working off the basis of it being 225, you can have a look through this post and see some pretty good recipes that you're going to now be able to start using. Like being able to get 12 stamina food, which is going to be pretty big. Dragon's Breath Chili, just for extra damage. Restorative potions that could be huge in PvP. Oil of Immolation, again from Alchemy, which actually does some half decent damage and people will be using. Starting to be able to get greater mana potions and things like that are going to be useful as well. But if you were to take Elixir of Agility just as an example, because this is going to be one that a lot of people will be using, because 15 agility for your rogues, hunters, ferals, whatever. You can start looking at what they require, things like Strangle Kelp and Goldthorn, and knowing that these are going to be in high demand. So being able to get these stocked up early and start getting rid of them as quick as possible before prices tank is probably going to be worthwhile. You're also going to start being able to get half decent enchanting recipes now. We know enchants at 25 have been a little bit lackluster, but you're going to actually start getting things that give +5. So like 5 strength on bracers, or 5 intellect on bracers, 5 strength on gloves at 225, assuming we get to 225. So enchants actually start to become a lot more important as well now. Also going to get access to the new solid weight stones and solid sharpening stones, which is nice. Probably hazard a guess that we're going to see something similar in terms of extra hit from Gnomragon like we did in BFD, because still, even at level 40, getting hit on gear is obviously extremely sparse. So I think we...
Now, if we're talking world buffs, okay, let's talk about Boon of the Black Fathom. I think they should remove the Boon of the Black Fathom buff. Like, you're not going to want to, if you're stacking world buffs, you don't want to have to go back and do Black Fathom Deeps to get the item to pop the buff when you're level 40 or 50 or 60, right? That's stupid. So I think they should just remove the Boon of Black Fathom buff, but then re-add what is effectively the same buff to the new raid. Call it the Boon of Gnomragon, right? Call it Mechatoric's Blessing or something, right? And have it do pretty much the same thing. Maybe it's a little bit better at level 40, maybe a little bit better at 60 or whatever, right? But yeah, just take it away and then give it back and upscale it a little bit every single raid is probably the best way to do that.
We will see ways that that's actually assisted through the Gnomragon raid, which over the next 3 or 4 days, I would say we're going to start to see a lot more coming out. Because actually, again, another Twitter post, Nora Valletta did say that they're excited to share more about Phase 2 soon, including this post sneak peek of the new Gnomragon raid, the Stranglethorn Val PvP event, Battleground matchmaking updates, and more. Battleground matchmaking updates is going to be interesting. Is there going to be...
Hear that? Battleground matchmaking updates. This is Nora Valletta. She works on the Classic team. They are going to be doing something about the current state of pre-mades. A lot of people are very unhappy about the pre-made situation. They're going to do something. What? We don't know, but they're going to do something. I see the comment in the chat, but how do you keep old content relevant in regards to the old raids being trivialized or irrelevant once we move on from them? They keep referring, the Classic dev team being they keep referring to Black Fathom Deeps and Gnomragon as, quote, leveling raids. That's the terminology that they've used multiple times. They always refer to them as, quote, leveling raids. And so what I would guess is that there will be some benefit to doing Black Fathom Deeps while leveling. Maybe it's going to be on a daily lockout. Maybe you do it once a day and it gives you a bunch of experience or something, and maybe same thing for Gnomragon once the level cap is raised from 40 to 50 and you want to do Gnomragon. I think there's going to be some purpose to going back and doing those raids while you're leveling, maybe just once a day or something. I don't know. I doubt they're going to want us to be spamming them. I doubt you're going to be doing 5 Black Fathom Deep runs per hour or something, right? Speed runs for the best XP. But I think there will be some reason to do them while leveling. There will be some reason to do Black Fathom Deeps while leveling between 25 and 40. I think they'll probably do that.
Battleground matchmaking updates and more. Battleground matchmaking updates is going to be interesting. Is there going to be solo queues? Wowhead also put out a post about community wish list for runes for each class, which I'll put a link in the description below if you want to go and have a look at that. I was going to cover it, but I'll be honest with you, I'm going to be doing something quite similar over the next couple of days anyway. So if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe.
It was a great video. Scottejaye is making a lot of really good SOD coverage news videos. I'm going to have this video linked in the description of this video. While you're down there, drop a like, subscribe, drop a comment, let me know about some of the stuff that I said or that he said in this video. Thank you for watching. And as always, stay safe.